I'd like to call to order the town council meeting for April 28th. We could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A roll call, please.
Brian Blazak,
Present.
Wayne Condina,
Present.
Mike Schilling,
Here.
Michael Aurelio,
Here.
Gerald Swets,
Here.
David Westland,
Present.
and Beth Hernandez, present.
Okay, so we have a quorum. Item number 4 is the approval of the minutes. You have before you the March 24th regular town council meeting minutes, the April 14th special study session minutes, and the April 14th special meeting minutes. Questions or comments? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the March 24th, April 14th special study session and the April 14th special meeting minutes.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Schilling, and seconded by Mr. Aurelio. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. It is approved. Item number 5 is public comment. We have a good crowd here tonight and quite a few people to speak for public comment, I believe. Some of it may be on the public hearing. And if it's for the public hearing, you can hold off on that. If it's not for the public hearing, which would be for the water, the sewer, and also the bond. If it's not for one of those things, we'll speak that now as far as public comment goes. Otherwise, we will open up the others for public comment at that time. So this could get confusing, so when we get to the point where we're talking about the water, the sewer, the rate increases, that type of thing, everybody's going to get an opportunity to speak if they want to. So, I mean, even if you didn't sign up, you're going to have the opportunity to speak. So we will start with just public hearing, public comments, which is general.
So, first one to sign up was Tim Kuiper.
Good evening, council members. Tim Kuiper representing Tobacco Island, Inc. on item 7B on your agenda for a special exception in the Route 41 Overlay District. I apologize if I'm repetitive of last month's meeting, but only 3 of you were present at last month's meeting, so I'll try to be as quick as possible as I know you have public hearings, and I appreciate your time tonight. Again, no discussions allowed on this item when it comes up, so I have to use this opportunity now. I strongly urge you to review carefully the February 22nd, 2021 BZA meeting minutes and written findings of fact. And you should have had them in your packet for tonight and at last month's meeting. My client came to the town in November of 2020 to inquire about the need for a tobacco shop at the proposed location of 10135 Earl Drive, which is right by K&M Transmission. They were only informed at that time, and again, there was a shift in, Mr. Eberly had gone to Cedar Lake. There was no planning person. There was no town manager. They were only informed that they needed a business license for that location. So they entered into a lease. They improved the property, and when it came time to actually apply for the business license, they were told, oh, that's in the US 41 overlay district, and you can't have a tobacco shop there. You can have it in the underlying industrial zone, but not in the overlay district. They filed everything for the BZA, prosecuted the special exception, and at the BZA meeting, there was 0 remonstrators. There were positive letters in support of the requested petition, in particular from the town of Cherville and some people there where a current location exists. At that meeting, there was a motion made to approve the special exception, but it failed to pass by 2 to 3. Without any further comment, without any negative comment, it was then given an unfavorable recommendation of 3 to 2. And then it comes to you guys. So you have in front of you their findings of fact, and a special exception is different than the other uses that the BZA makes recommendations on. It's basically a conditional use that you allow in this overlay district for this type of use, subject to it meeting certain requirements. Now, the BZA found, although I'm not sure how, because I've watched the meetings again and again, and there's just no comment about any of these things, but they found items 1, 2, and 3 were not satisfied at that meeting. In particular, they say that the use would be detrimental or endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. It's just wrong. It's contemplated, it's a permitted use in that district, and it's subject to conditions. There's nothing detrimental about it. There was one literally down the street that closed up, or St. Anthony's is doing some things there. Item 2 says it'll be injurious to the use and enjoyment of the other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted and impair value. Again, this is not true. But certainly if it was the case, people notified in that immediate area would have came and voiced their concern because they have a real interest in their properties and making sure that the values do not go down. The only written letters submitted were positive on the proposed use, including one from Tom Anderson of Cherville, who was familiar with the client's location in Cherville. Item 3 says the use will impede the normal and orderly development and improvements of the surrounding property. This again is just wrong. The property, most of that area is already developed. It's existing use, it's surrounded by existing uses. It already has the roads, the improvements, and everything else already in. It's not going to impede anything there. We're requesting that the town council approve the special exception after considering the actual record that was presented to the BZA. We will still commit to no LED lights and to not change the outside of the building except for a sign, which were 2 of the conditions that my client made at that meeting. And again, we believe this would be a positive addition to the commercial district there. There were no remonstrators, and we're asking for your favorable consideration of this tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Randy Stotmeister.
It's Stokemeister. You did well. Yes. Yes. I'm Randy Stokemeister. I live just hop, skip, and jump. In fact, my property butts up against the Public Works facility. I'm the only house there next to the retention pond. This past winter, at one particular time, usually we get, the topic is deer. Usually we get like 4 or 5 that travel through our neighborhood. But there's a particular time when there was 14 in my neighborhood. I took pictures of them. They're on Facebook, all documented. And I didn't think nothing of it, but then I realized when it was back in 1999, my dad, we were traveling 30 miles an hour. My dad had a 91 Caprice, and we hit a deer. Well, actually, the deer hit the car. $2,500 worth of damage, easy. And that's at low speed. But then I'm thinking, with all these deer, when somebody swerves, hits a pedestrian on the sidewalk, or worse yet, goes off in the ditch. There's further down there I live on Thielen Street. Further down, as you cross over to Joliet, it's dark. There's a lot of deer travel. And I'm thinking, 14 deer, that's a herd. That's just too much. But getting ready for spring, getting out in the yard, the back of our house, well, when the Public Works facility was installed, Bob Farrison came to me. He says, "We want to put some arborvitae trees in your back to block the view of the barn and all the equipment in the back of their facility." So I said, "That's a great idea." So what they did is they planted them, and this is what it looks like. See, it's nice. There's a wall. That's on their side. Now, this is what's happened currently on my side. It's about 36 inches high, all along that border. Of course, our plants in the backyard, they're all eaten up. And we had to replace, actually the town, fortunately, replaced one tree, I think it was last year. That's all that's left of it. And we had a mild winter. Very mild, compared to other winters. So people are getting their plants eaten up. Actually the border of walks I had, Bob gave me a choice. We either put a fence up or put these There's trees up, I like, hey, I have a body, I like this better. But now, I kinda wish I would've put the fence up, now it's too late. You know, it's better. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh.
Yeah, and we're just about out of time, too. So
Yes,
if
well,
you
anyway,
Wrap it up.
I kinda wish I would've, I had an option to put the fence up or this. I kinda wish I would've put a fence up, but I never realized, of course, this would happen, but we're getting too many deer. Too many deer.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm Jean Smith. My husband and I, who's back there, Bill Smith, we live on 93rd down here. We also have a deer problem. We had the same one.
I need your an address, name and address.
10575 West 93rd, just on the other side of Gerlach Court.
Thank you.
Okay? We had all of our shrubs out front that went up the wall and everything just eaten flat from the deer and everything. However, when I was out looking for, I went out to get the mail, there were a minimum of 14 deer that crossed on 93rd at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and that was late February. And they were going right across into our property. Now, deer are very habitual. Once they find out you've got good food, they're back to see you time and again. And it doesn't matter if you use Deer Stopper from Menards, it's a mild deterrent. However, we talked to a biologist from the Indiana Natural Department of Resources, and he sent me this, which is called Urban Deer Control. I would be glad to leave it with one of you if you would look at it and consider it. They go through everything. This is not deer eradication for St. John, it's simply control, because the deer are being squashed into that swamp that's over on the far side of us over there, and that's fine. But when you've got maybe up to 20 or more deer that are gathering, it's not healthy for them. It's not good for the population, because you can also have a problem called Lyme's disease. Deer carry the ticks. Ticks bite people, and people get the Lyme's disease. So not only do we have a potential problem for accidents, and yes, I've had a deer hit my car too a few years ago. So it's that, but there's several problems, and they have a very sound, safe way of managing deer. In fact, it's bow and arrow. It's done during the hunt time in the fall. They are certified hunters that are used to doing it. They tell you how to do all of that. And the meat that is gotten can go into a food pantry. So there's a well-rounded program that's put together. If I could leave this.
Yes, you may.
All right. You, Mr. Sweat?
Yes.
All right. If you all would consider that, we would much appreciate it. I also made some copies of just describing what happened with us. Thank you very much.
You are
Thank you.
welcome. Yes, sir.
Those are all the folks that have signed in.
Okay. Beth, you have
I
some
do
that came in
have-
via email?
Two, I believe, two for just the regular town council meeting. The first is from Bill Purcell of 8649 Fairway Drive. I am writing to express my concerns over the recent request from Lake Hills HOA to surveil and monitor public Lake Hills Park entry exit points with license plate reading cameras. After watching the town council meeting on April 14, 2021, I became concerned for a number of reasons. One, why is there a need for license plate reading cameras by a private entity? Two, why do they want to use LPR cameras to invade personal privacy? 3, why do they want to record your and my license plates and photos of us, but not their own? 4, why do they want to infringe on everyone's right to privacy? 5, why has the town not enacted an ordinance prohibiting private persons or entities from collecting private residents' plate numbers or information via LPR cameras? 6, why hasn't the town enacted an ordinance governing private use of LPR cameras to record on public town roads? 7, LPR camera use should require town government permission, be regulated, and charged a permit fee annually. Look, if they want to put up security cameras on their own property, that's fine. Lots of us already have them. However, if they want to collect license plate data and monitor the activities of town residents, family, and friends going to the Lake Hills Public Park, that must absolutely not be allowed. It's an invasion of personal privacy. In the April 14th meeting, the representative from Lake Hills HOA stated that HOA members would have the option to exclude their plates from being read. I'm not sure exactly how that would work. If a camera detects a plate number and decides not to store it, there would be record of said decision along with the plate number. It would simply be in a different file in a different database. The real problem is, why would any group think it's okay to invade my privacy and yours, but not their own? Several calls to Flock Safety, the company the HOA is buying equipment from, produce no results, and they never answer their phone and have not returned any of my 4 messages. That alone should be enough to alert any sane person, but there's more. A thorough study of their information on their website, info on the internet, and a few phone calls to other communities that took on their systems convinced me that this was a horrible idea that brought litigation to towns. First, a private group cannot be allowed to record and store data of license plates of everyone going to a public park. It's an invasion of privacy and it's illegal. If it were to only record people exclusively entering their property, that would be fine, but that's not the case here. Only the police or a municipal entity should have the authority to decide to do that after the local authorities have given permission. Secondly, the HOA representative delivering the presentation to the council on April 14th explained how HOA members desiring privacy would be able to opt out of having their plate read, then went on to detail how he lied to HOA members to get them to show up at a meeting about the plate reading cameras by telling them, we are meeting to raise HOA dues. Once there, he told them, no, we are not raising HOA dues. We are getting your support for plate reading cameras. He lied in order to get his own neighbor HOA members to come to his agenda-driven meeting. If he will lie to his friends and neighbors, he will most certainly lie to us as to who has access to any data collected by any cameras they install. This HOA can direct their data collection, which would include photos of passing cars, trucks, their license plate numbers, and visual photos of who is in the car or truck to anywhere they choose. This database is then searchable by them by entering license plate numbers, vehicle type or color, characteristics, or people. What entities could also have access to the database like Flock, ALPR, or Vigilant Solutions, all of which can link this data to a local or national database. They can allow these agencies or private parties to also track the movements and patterns of residents. Other communities that tried this ended up in hot water over selling data of its private residents. Imagine it comes out in a year or two that Mike Aurelio or another HOA member used the system to track his wife's movements when his neighbor leaves or gets home, or who is cheating with whom. Frankly, plate reading tracking cameras are a legal nightmare in private hands. You cannot possibly allow LPR cameras to be used to data mine town residents' movements and store them in a database. Further, you cannot possibly allow a private entity to monitor residents' usage of town public park Lake Hills. There must be an immediate prohibition of such camera use by non-government persons in our town until this town council has the time to create an ordinance establishing use and permit fees. I suggest annual permit fees of $20,000 per camera. We can use the income from Lake Hills' proposed 6 cameras to assist our parks, enhance operations, and provide a discretionary funds for the street department. I'm confident such a fee would quash their LPR camera idea altogether, as the only way to get to Lake Hills Public Park is by driving through Lake Hills subdivision. I further urge you to deny the ability of any group in town to install plate readers that in effect record the use of a town park by its residents, a violation of their right to privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties. I believe if allowed, this will in fact bring litigation to the town. Okay, and then the last one is from Christian Jorgensen, 10157 East Wellington Court. To the town council and ladies and gentlemen in attendance, I apologize for being unable to attend in person. However, I have to present tonight at a bar association meeting. I am a resident of St. John, a former town councilman and your Lake County councilman. I asked the town to approve Tobacco Island's special exception request for a shop in the US Route 41 overlay district. As I understand it, the use is permitted in the underlying industrial zoning district. The use will occupy an existing vacant portion of the building at 10135 Earl Drive, and it will increase the commercial tax base in St. John, which is greatly needed. This use will help to alleviate some of our residential tax burden and will help to encourage further commercial growth in the US 41 commercial corridor. Again, something that is greatly needed in our community. While this is a special exception in the US Route 41 overlay district based upon an existing location in Cherville, this proposed use will not be detrimental to the surrounding area. It would not impact neighboring property value, and this would not impede the orderly growth in the area. In fact, the use would encourage further growth, again, which is greatly needed, as well as support for local businesses. As a town, we should continue to encourage appropriate commercial development and uses in our commercial and industrial zoning districts, which are already severely limited by location. We do not have the benefits that Crown Point or others do for industrial growth, which limits our tax revenue potential. I ask that you not adopt an adherence to an antiquated system that no longer fulfills the need of our town. A purely residential community cannot support the police, fire, and other services required to protect us and make St. John one of the most desirable communities in South County. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Christian J. Jorgensen.
That's all?
Yes.
Okay. I guess in reply to Mr. Purcell, the Lake Hills issue with their cameras has been pulled from the agenda. They asked to have it pulled, so it will not be addressed at this time. So, any other comments from anyone? If not, we will move on. Item number 6 is a public hearing. This is a public hearing on ordinance 1732, which is a petition for annexation of certain real property to the town of St. John. Petitioners are Leo and Mara Lamini. Basically, this is a R1, single-family residence at 8901 Deodore Street that would like to be voluntarily annexed into the town. Mr. Westland, everything in order?
The proofs of publication are in order and in compliance with Indiana law.
Okay. So we will open up the floor to public comment on this annexation.
Mr. and Mrs. Meany.
Okay, are they here? Yes, we're here. Would you like to come up and speak? I know I gave your name and address, but if you would for the record anyway.
Sure. Leo and Marla Meany, address 8901 Deodore. And we're here to simply petition and ask the council for permission to be annexed into the town of St. John.
Okay. Any
No other
questions?
comments from our side, just that request, please.
Okay. Questions while they're up here, as opposed to deferring them till later? Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other comment? Mr. Westland, anybody else signed up?
No.
Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on this? Okay, then I will close the floor to public comment. And then we will also, gentlemen, you've got the annexation information in front of you. And we also have the fiscal plan there. With that, I would like a motion to consider ordinance 1732 on first reading only, first reading.
So moved. Second.
Okay, so the resolution adopting the fiscal plan and the adoption of the annexation won't be on the agenda until the May 26th meeting if it gets approved here tonight. So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That is approved 5-0. So on May 26th, then we'll come up for the fiscal plan adoption and also the ordinance adoption. Thank you. Item B is ordinance 1730, which is an ordinance amending ordinance, I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, okay. Ordinance 1730 is an ordinance amending the ordinance 1645 and ordinance 1385, which is establishing the rates and charges for the use and the services rendered by the waterworks system. Proofs of publication? Mr. Facenda, I believe.
Mr. President, other
Yes.
members of the council, yes, the proofs of publication of the notice of this public hearing are in order. They were both published, they were published in the Times and the Post Tribune on the 2nd of April. So they are in order.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
The only other comment is that I would like to ask Eric Walsh to come to the podium to just give an initial presentation on from Baker Tilly on the rate adjustment.
That would be fine.
Thank you, Phil. Members of the council, Eric Walsh, partner with Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors. Won't go in great detail today, but happy to answer questions from you or the public if you direct them to me. This is really the culmination of, I'd say, a year-plus discussion on this topic. I know we have water and sewer separate public hearings, but maybe I'll just take them both together since it really is somewhat of a married issue. On the water side, tonight you have in front of you a rate adjustment that would impact a 4,000 gallon per month customer. $3.91 would be the rate increase on their water bill only. In working with the clerk treasurer, that's typical of probably a 2 to 3 person home in town. Obviously, there's people that would have higher and lower bills than that, but on average, if you looked at a 4 to 5 person household, roughly approximately double that, probably about 8,000 gallons per month of water usage, and they would be looking at approximately a $7.82 per month increase on the water bill. What that rate adjustment is going to pay for is really two main issues. One is your last water rate increase was 2006. So obviously, since 2006, operational maintenance repair type costs have increased. So part of this is catching up with that, as well as planning for the next couple of years that we anticipate. Obviously, there will be additional cost increases, repairs, et cetera, needed. That's about half of the rate adjustment, approximately. And then the other half is really capital related. It's both to support a bond issue that you have the bond ordinance in front of you tonight, as well as support approximately $400,000 per year in what we call pay-as-you-go capital. So obviously, I think you all know about the large ticket project items that are in the bond. But in addition to that, there would also be approximately $400,000 a year for mains, other needs, et cetera, that have been identified from your department heads. The sewer also have a rate increase being proposed tonight for that same 4,000 gallon a month customer. So again, if you think of a household of 2 to 3, the rate impact to them would be approximately $2.28 per month. If you then double that to a family of 4 or 5, approximately a $4.56 rate adjustment. In sewer, same type of discussion, but a lower rate adjustment. It's only been about 3 or 4 years since your last rate adjustment was done, but there's also additional capital needs within the system. The SCADA that I think is already being ready to get started, as well as other capital needs identified that total about $200,000 to $300,000 a year, and opposed to water where we're targeting that $400,000. There is no new debt in sewer. So in closing, council, the total rate adjustment for that family of 2 to 3 on average is about $6.19 between water and sewer combined. Again, for that average family of 4 to 5, about $12.38. That averages out between the water and sewer. Most of your customers are obviously water and sewer customers, so they would see on their bill approximately a 17% increase when you combine both of those on average.
Okay. So I think what I would like to do then would be open the floor to public comment, and we'll take public comment from anyone who wants to speak. After the public comment section is closed, then we'll bring it back to the board here to address some of the questions that may be raised and the questions that we have for you, Eric. So With that, I would like to open the floor to public comment.
Mr. President, on the water works rate and charges, ordinance 1730, Mr. Ted Nosel. Did I get that right?
Yeah, nozzle, whatever you want to call
That was
it.
close.
My name is Ted Nozell. I live at 12629 Larimer Drive. My taxes went up approximately 25% in 2019 compared to houses and how they did their tax rating. Now I'm getting hit with a water increase. I just retired. I'm on a fixed income, and there should be reductions for people who are retired. Residents of St. John's for 25 to 30 years. My kids don't go to Lake Central High School, and I guess the majority of my taxes is going to pay for that and all the schools. My kids used to go to school in mobile units in Dyer. And once you keep piling on, it's not going to stop. And when Boyer was doing his strip mall over here, I came in here and talked about it, when I moved here in 1991, I think there was, 1992, there was between 5,000 and 5,200 residents, and now we got 20,000. And the lady that has a problem with the deer, the reason why you got the problem with the deer is because they have no green space to go to anymore. There's nothing really left in this town. You look at the Continental, everything that preserves. You're putting 400 and something houses in here. That's all I hear every day is excavators going by my house and just going, and nobody's checking the ditches on White Oak that they're filling in with spoil when they're doing their excavation. But I just think it's a shame that I have to pay for it and I'm retired. And I don't see anybody trying to do anything for people who are elderly that are sitting in this. My neighbor's 91 years old. He should have some kind of rate reduction on his water, his sewer, and his taxes. I mean, he put his time and he put his money into the school system when his kids went there. And then he puts them in for mine. And he should have a reduction, not another expense. There's nowhere to go. And when I was talking to Boyer last time when I was here, I think it was a year and a half ago, I said, why don't they have a building moratorium and stop and figure out, give a comprehensive plan to the residents of St. John, what they're doing with the infrastructure, the water, the sewer, the roads. We got one 4-lane road in St. John. It's US 41, which we have no control over. What happens if you ever have to evacuate or something? How are you going to get out of here? There was a sewer break on Sheffield Avenue before I retired. I was less than 5 minutes from my house. It took me a half hour to get to my house. So I moved here because it was a small town, and now it's getting out of control. You know, when you're putting 300 pounds of poop into a 100-pound bag, it's going to burst. And I just think that the residents deserve more. My taxes are high, and I says, I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen any road improvements. I haven't seen anything, you know. And I'm just concerned that you're going to be driving me out of the town, because actually I moved here because I like when I moved here, I loved the town. And now it's just getting too big, too congested. We're becoming like Cherville. You can't drive anywhere to go anywhere. And then they're going to put 465 houses over here off of White Oak, and then the farm across there. Where's all that water going to go? Now you got nothing to absorb all that rainwater. It's going to come right down by my house. And I just think that when you do something, if you're doing subdivisions and you're planning subdivisions, you should find the impact on it. You know, your lot sizes should be a lot bigger. They should be 3/4 of an acre. Then that way that makes people come here and they want to live here. And then that way you don't have the congestion. So I'm just saying from experience for 30 years since I've been here. And where I used to be able to get around and I can't even drive in my own town. So that's all I have, and have a good night.
Thank you, sir.
He's the only one who signed up on the waterworks rate charges. He also signed up on the
Can,
sewer rates.
can we merge public comments together? I know we have to open them up for both public hearings, but can I hear both? Can we hear both of them all at the same time? Is that okay?
Yeah, I just would want Mr. Facenda to affirm that the proofs are in order on the second one.
I think you could formally open a public hearing for both,
Okay.
okay? And
And the
then
proofs are, we have the proof of publications on the
the
sewer
sewer.
works as well.
same day,
Okay.
same papers.
Okay, thank you. So, sir, did you want to come up and speak on the sewer side as well? Or you have anything else to say?
No, that was probably both.
Okay, that's fine.
You know, I'm not gonna waste any more of your time.
Okay. Is there anyone then signed up on the sewer side that would like to speak?
And there's no way I'm going to get this. Mr. Chuck
Demkowitz.
Demkowitz, that's what I was going to say. Exactly like that.
You nailed it.
Good guess.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Chuck Demkowitz, 9484 Belmont Avenue, St. John. And I got to tell you guys, it's a great place to live. I think that the taxes here are great. If you don't like our taxes, move to Illinois. And I'm quite certain you'll be happy to come back. This rate increase, I'm looking at this. My daughter lives in Munster. There's just her. I know she pays a lot more than $27.28 for her utility bills for the water and the sewer. And there's just my wife and myself, and I'm the one that pays the bills. And I most definitely say that our bill's a heck of a lot more than $35.79. When is this from? 1972 or something?
There are a number of different items that are on your water bill besides water and sewer. Our garbage is on there. What else do we have on that bill, gentlemen? Anybody else know?
That's about,
Is it?
Garbage, water, and sewer.
Okay.
yeah. And the garbage has been pretty constant. But I really would like to have a $37 or $35 bill. And then when did this, when was this computed? I have no way of knowing. Any ideas?
Eric, did you compute this? Okay.
If they've raised rates recently, those should be reflected, but the oldest those would be was 2019.
Okay.
That's completely out of,
This is also based on 4,000 gallons of water use. How many gallons do you use a month? Do you use 8,000 or?
I don't think it's even that much. There's the two of us. And my daughter in Munster, there's just her. And she works most of the time. So I'm kind of leery of these numbers, to be honest. But that's irrelevant. My big concern is we get our water from an aquifer. And an aquifer has lifespan. When it's gone, it's gone. Can we get Lake Michigan water?
At the point that your aquifer is dried up, I think you can petition for Lake Michigan water as soon as your sources that we have would dry up. But until then, until we have plenty of water, you're not gonna be able to get it until you can say there's an emergency that you need it.
Well, my concern is not for tomorrow. We have a lot of building going on. Can this aquifer handle all the building that's going on with literally hundreds and hundreds of houses and being built or to be built?
There's two more wells that are gonna go in the gates, and that should pick up give us more water. And the wells 3 and 5, we just lowered, and they got more production out of well 3. Well 5 is gonna be rebuilding, they're gonna finish it probably this week or next week. And we talked to the engineers, we talked to the water operator, everything is good. We shouldn't dry up.
that is a big concern, you know. Last year, we had water restrictions. We never had water restrictions before, did we, for like watering?
We have.
Yeah, we've had them in the past.
We've had some maybe about 12, 14 years ago. We had to go door to door and tell the people to stop watering. But that's just because our engineers are here. We have to do some improvements on water distribution, getting the water to flow when the tower goes down. You want the well at wells 7 and 6 in the gates to pump water to the Hack Street Tower because the Hack Street Tower goes down.
Okay.
And once we get that rectified, we should be good. There should be no big problem with water loss and pressure. We've never had that problem. Our water operator would be here today, but he had something to do. But our engineers are here, 2 of our engineers, Scott and Jim Maurer.
Yeah, oh, by the way, the water department is great. Any concerns, when I've called them, they've taken care of it, and everything like that. Here again, I'm kind of like other people. My wife and I, we're retired, we're on a fixed income, and every time you have more outlay, we don't automatically get more coming in. Social Security is, oh well. But, you know, any kind of increase, it hurts. And I do have to say, my house value has gone up a lot, but my taxes have gone down. I like that. Somebody's doing something good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if you would, if you wanted to, if you check your water bill, the current water rate is, if I'm correct, is $3.26 per 1,000 gallons. So however many gallons you use, that should be what your water rate is. And the increase would bring that up to $4.24 per 1,000 gallons. So, okay.
By the way, St. John water, I like it. It tastes good.
I think that,
Tell your friends.
you know, I really think that really depends on what neighborhood you're in, because in my neighborhood, my water's good too, so I don't have any issues.
I like it as well.
Anybody else?
No one else has signed in.
Okay, anybody else on the floor would like to speak to water, sewer rate increase, or the bond issue? Yes, come on up.
Once again, my name's Randy Stoltmeister. I live on 10760 Thielen Street. I just had one question. Wayne, you've been to my house a couple times.
A few times.
Yes. My question is this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I live between 2 sets of railroad tracks on Thielen Street. And I've been here since 2003, and those times there have been 6 water main breaks in that small section. 3, I think at least 3 on Hack and Thielen, and 3 in front of my house. So I just want to know, before we keep on getting increases, when are we going to repair the pipe on Thielen? The old, they're old pipes.
That's why in this paperwork that they're trying to do the bond, there are some water mains that have been identified by our Public Works Department and by our water operator and the engineers. And we do have, Thielen is not on there right now, but there's some other ones. And I think, Jim, you've got some information from Bob. There is one water main that we want to replace in the last, I don't know how many years, and you can fill me in on that. It's like 62 breaks on this main. And I don't know the distance, but am I right with 62, or did I exaggerate?
Over 10 years, 62 breaks over 10 years covers several proposed water main replacements.
Okay, it wasn't just that one main.
Not just one.
Okay, I'm sorry. He fact-checked me, so that's good.
That's still a lot of repairs.
And those are on the list, and that's why the bond is coming up for that. They've been identified. We've worked on this probably over a year and a half, and we had Scott's back there. He's been part of that program too. He's another engineer that works for Haas. So, and Jim's taking notes now for your street. Yeah, we've been out there a few times. And again, some of that stuff just got let by the side. They kicked the can down the road. Now we're where we have to try and fix that.
So you said there's notations, but when do you think?
That
I don't know, I can't tell you that's gonna be next week. But, I see Jim wrote that down, and we'll do the best we can, to fix it.
Well, I suggest you fix that one at 60 breaks first, for sure.
Well, yeah, that one area,
Yeah.
it's bad, but thank you for your concern.
Thanks for my
Thank you.
hearing.
So one thing that we have done, Randy, is that we've worked to try to identify the mains in town that need to be replaced. And part of this bond issue has some, he called it the rainy day, needs and stuff, but we really do look to replace a lot of the mains in the future and are making that part of an annual process, is to make sure we upgrade this stuff as we go along. Also, as we make some improvements in development, we want to make sure that those water mains get replaced before we put roads in instead of after we put roads in. So, Wayne has worked with Public Works on this thing, and Public Works and our engineers are really the driving force behind this, the water mains. So, they're working on it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Dave Mills, 12465 Hoffman Place. I've served on boards before, I noticed, thank you. But I had a simple question. You guys have conducted studies in order to justify the water increase and the waste increase. Do you have a copy of that, and can you publish that so that I can take a look at it to better understand exactly what was entailed in that study? I printed the minutes, and I didn't see anything.
Well, this has actually been ongoing for a number of months that we've been working through this. Eric, would this 4-page thing be what he's looking for?
You could provide that, or the most recent is actually the accounting report that's in the bond documents.
Okay.
I can provide that to Beth to post. It's gonna be on a national website anyway, so everyone would have access to it. You can post it on your website if you want.
Okay, we can do that.
That's
Okay.
literally a month old. So
Okay.
Yeah, that's a summary. I'd like to see some of the details.
Oh, you want details?
Right.
If you Beth post it.
Okay.
Got it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Rick Conaway. I live at 12381 West 94th Court in St. John. I have a couple questions. Maybe Mrs. Hernandez could answer this first one. What is the minimum amount of gallons you have to use every month, except in the really hot, dry summer months? It's just my wife and I. We usually pay the minimum, which is $8.15 a month. That's just for the water usage. I understand that the sewer tracker rate is based upon actual gallons used. So what is the minimum amount of gallons used to pay the standard $8.15 every month?
I believe it's 2,500, Rick.
Okay. So,
For a 3/4
Put your
inch meter
microphone.
and 3,455 gallons for a 1-inch meter. You probably have a 3/4 inch meter.
good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It is good.
Good to be bigger, yeah. Okay, so then my second question is, if this rate goes in, will the minimum charge go up?
Yes, because it would be based on gallon. So it's based, the rates are based per 1,000 gallons.
Yeah, but again, if I'm paying if I'm using less than, would you say
2,500 for you.
or whatever it is, if I'm using less than that, if you're gonna raise my water rates, you're actually raising my water rates on gallons I'm not using. So that's why I'm asking, are you gonna raise the minimum rate that people have to pay that are using less than what the minimum is?
Let me see what
I can address
the
it.
previous
Eric,
one is.
okay.
Council President, you want me to address it now or at the end?
I wouldn't mind if my question was answered.
You can do it now, that's fine. We don't have a zillion people lined up, so might as well get the information as they're asking for it.
Addressing, I just didn't want to know what order you wanted to go in.
No, that's fine.
Yep, on your water bill where you're paying $8.15 now for a 5/8 3/4, your bill would go to $10.60. Minimum bills, just like as you can imagine in a utility, you have variable costs and you have fixed costs. The pipes in the ground, stuff at the plant that you have debt that's outstanding, that doesn't go up or down based on how many gallons somebody uses. Just like you have a minimum when you turn on your electric. you have a minimum bill every single month. That's because the lines and the, going through, carrying the electric, the poles, et cetera. So you're going to see the same increase in your fixed fees that you're going to see in your variable cost as well.
So the 815 would go to what?
$10.60.
I had another question, and unfortunately now it is jumped off the rails. So I guess that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Rick.
Nice to see you, Rick.
Anyone else? Second time, anyone else want to speak? Okay, I will close the floor to public comment.
Mr. President, we have public comment submitted by Dropbox and email.
Can you summarize them? They don't have to be read verbatim, do they? Not according to our posting. Mr. Westland? Because of the unique nature of this meeting,
I don't know how long are they? I would suggest you read them.
I'm fine with that. Okay.
Okay, the first is from Bill Manisopoulos, who lives at 10011 Parish Avenue. He has the following statement. Okay, so my comments are made in reference to public hearing item B, ordinance number 1730, and ordinance amending ordinance 1645 and 1385, establishing rates and charges for the use and services rendered by the waterworks system. While the finances of the town of St. John have been negatively impacted by the pandemic, let's keep in mind that the pandemic and the downturn in the economy has most severely impacted seniors and those on fixed incomes. Now is not the right time to try to raise money or balance the budget on the backs of those most vulnerable. Yes, 14 years have passed since the last water rate increase. However, it doesn't make sense to whack seniors with a huge 30% increase in one fell swoop because nothing has been done in 14 years. Something has to be done, but let's keep the senior rate frozen. The Waterworks Committee that I serve on is investigating ways to address budget issues without raising rates 30% on our seniors who have paid more than their fair share over the years. We have Mr. Joe Hero, 11723 South Oak Ridge Drive. I'm going to do my best on his. It's handwritten, so it's hard to read a little bit, but he would like to submit his remonstrance and objection to ordinance 1731, 1729, 1730. Reasons for his objections: the project helps pay for private future development, the cost of which the developers should pay for, not the water users. 2, the engineering company failed to provide the cost estimates for one of the projects and was not available for review before the hearing by the public, which might cost over $1 million, which is a significant portion of the bond issue. 3, the failure to provide the cost estimate for one project makes the engineering estimates doubtful to me. The whole project that appears to me to be a part of a lawsuit settlement and should be paid for by the town corporation, not the water users. The town has failed to provide to the water users evidence that each project listed is needed at this time. The town has failed to prove that the state shouldn't pay to relocate the water lines along the east side of Route 41. The town has failed to show why increasing certain pipe sizes is not done to help developers. The bond ordinance falsely states that the projects to be included were available to be viewed by the public. Since one significant project cost estimate, over $1 million document, was not available to the public immediately after public notice was given for the bond issue. Therefore, public notice was invalid and defective. No detailed estimate for the cost of improvements, the SCADA system, was available to the public to be viewed. The 10% contingency, in my opinion, is inadequate, and the total project cost could exceed $10 million and should be done by referendum. He attached an addendum, which is Project C4 cost estimate was not available to the clerk's office until the day before the hearing. This project cost is $1.5 million. This proves the legal notice was defective. This raises the issue that all project cost estimates might be defective. C4 estimate coming late proves to me the bond ordinance falsely estimates the project cost cited in the bond ordinance, which was written before all cost estimates were in. All these issues prove the water rate ordinance is not properly structured and excessive. We have public comment from Deborah Magarini of 8735 Howard Street. I am a senior who has lived in St. John for 14 years. What I have heard about the increases proposed is very troubling. My bill is already high, and I still had to buy a water softener and salt to keep it going. I also have to buy bottled water because I cannot drink the water. If we could get Lake Michigan water, the increase would be offset by the other expenses I would no longer incur. Please do everything possible to avoid this increase. With all the additional building in the area, we should not have to incur the cost of the sewers and water lines that have been put in to accommodate the new construction. Thank you for your attention to this. Mike Zimkowski of 12331 West 103rd Court. My name is Mike Zimkowski. I live on 103rd Court. The small piece of paper has no information on the ordinances under consideration for change. Are the changes necessary for keeping the quality of water up to good, best, or better or best? Sewer rates do we have on our sewer rates do we have on our sewer plant? Or does the sewer water get treated by Cherville? If I understand correctly, the town cannot ever get water from Lake Michigan. Therefore, the town can only rely on wells that bring up good water for residents. Maybe one course of action could be to place a moratorium on issuing any building permits for businesses and homes until good quality water wells, towers, and the like can be built and put online to serve the needs for current homes and businesses and allow for major growth moving on into the future. A partnership with home developers, business developers, the town and the state, and yes, federal level, get involved in working together to bring quality drinking water sewer systems into the town for the near and far off future. Try to spread the financial cost across residents and businesses alike. Secure state and federal grants for wells, water towers, and maybe even the town's own water treatment plant. Don't just look at the end of the block for a solution. Look down the block, look around the corner, down to the other end of town. I feel that me paying my fair share of the cost is only justified, but also an opportunity to be a part owner of my town. We chose St. John for a few reasons: the quality of the home we built, the infrastructure of the town, and the people of this town. As the town grew and continues to grow, many changes have taken place, growing pains in good and not so good directions. Residents have spoken to remove some of the not so good direction people, and I hope that the current staff and officials remember that and are really working to keep those changes going in the right direction. Marilys Ipperlan of 8980 Shilton Drive. It's Dave Ipperlin. And so my name is Dave, and I have been a resident of St. John for over 20 years. I currently live in Shilton Hills. My comment is concerning our water. In my opinion, we should switch to Lake Michigan water. The quality is so much better. We would not need water softeners, etc. I would be willing to spend more for water if we did it. I know there already exists a connection, which is sometimes open for supplying our needs. Please consider this strongly. I think there are many people in our community that would support this. We have Eric DeVries of 11903 Lewis Drive. Dear Town Council members, thank you for the opportunity to submit public comment on proposed ordinances increasing rates and charges on water and sewage to property owners. Having recently moved back to St. John, I am pleased to see the continued growth and economic prosperity the town has experienced. However, I am concerned that the proposed increases represent an unjust enrichment of certain property developers to the detriment of property owners and other developers. Over the past 2 decades, the town has seen many new developments, which has understandably placed a strain on the infrastructure of our community. It is necessary for continued investment in the required infrastructure needed to support future development and enjoyment of this town by its residents. However, there has been significant disparity in how the town has deemed it appropriate to pay for that necessary infrastructure. In some cases, the town has required private developers at great expense to make the necessary improvements. As other developments are made, those developers can recoup some of their investment as the infrastructure is used by further development. In other cases, as we see now, the town has listened to shills of praise for the town, but pushed their development costs to the residents of the town. To be clear, our infrastructure is strained because certain large tracts of land have been developed without requiring the property developer to provide the necessary infrastructure to support their expansion projects. Property developers, whether they use dollars, pounds, euros, or shillings, must pay for the cost of their development. The town council must not compel residents to subsidize the profits of large developers. And the last one is from Wendy Guglielmo, I don't know how to say her last name, Wendy Guglielmo.
Not so easy.
Yeah, that one's not so easy. 8725 Howard Street. I would like to express my concern regarding the water and sewer rate increase. I do not agree with any increase. First of all, we pay enough for water and sewer. On top of that, I have to have a water softener and purchase salt for softener, which adds to the expense of St. John water. In addition to that, we still cannot drink the St. John water. Therefore, I have to purchase water for drinking and cooking. There have been hundreds of homes built in St. John over the past few years. Why in the world would you have to increase our rates when there are so many more homes paying? I don't think it is fair that we who are dedicated and loyal residents should have to pay for all the new water and sewer lines for these new homes. They have already added inconveniences with traffic and wildlife. Please do not allow our water and sewer rates to increase.
That's all?
Yes.
Okay. Again, last call from the floor? Okay, then we will close the floor to public comment. Let me find my agenda here. Okay. So I merged these all together, but let's go back to then, well, let's just keep them all together. If the board has any questions for Eric or comments for Phil, actually, you know what, Phil, we'll keep the bond out of this at this point. Let's just keep this to water and sewer. So I'm going to open it up to the board if anybody has any comments.
Sure, so we're able to talk about the rate increase?
Yes.
So I want to thank Eric from Baker Tilly. We had a good discussion last week about the rate increase, and you went over the bonds. You educated me on the bonds, also the cost of the infrastructure and the additional wells that are absolutely needed. I thank you for explaining this to me and really bringing some clarity to me. You also explained to me some flexibility we would have with a 30% rate increase. Because I do also understand that 30% is a huge increase. And I have no doubt now, after you explained it, that at some point we need it. So the bonds in 18 months, we have to have a rate that covers the bonds. Totally clear on that. I appreciate that explanation. But at the same time, 30% increase all at once, and I certainly do understand that 15 years of no increase is going to cause a large increase at some point when we don't increase. So I understand that some catch-up needs to be made. What I would ask, and what my hope is to lessen the burden. If this is a rough year for many people in town, not only the senior citizens, but lots of industries have been severely affected this year. 30% increase in water and sewer may be a small line item, but it's part of everybody's budget. And so if we can lessen that and still achieve our goal, I would love to entertain that flexibility in maybe pushing it over time. Next year, if we do it over 18 months, you had mentioned it could be done. That would be helpful, I think, to people on a restricted budget, people that have suffered this year. And the second increase would basically come when water usage is decreasing, maybe be even less of a burden. So that was my thoughts on those. If we can entertain some type of staircasing over time to lessen the burden.
Okay. Anybody else?
So we're not gonna you don't wanna have one big bond, you wanna have different bonds?
No, my understanding was you don't need to do any of that.
Can I provide just a little bit of clarification on that? So before you can issue the debt, you have to have your rates adopted. So the legal process, the public hearing, the actual vote from the council has to have taken place. But if you wanted to split that rate adjustment into a couple of, and we talked about this, if you guys remember, several months ago as a potential option, you could split that into, in the case of Mr. Aurelio's discussion, 3 phases. Approximately 10% in phase 1, 10% 6 months later, 10% then 6 months after that. The key is, though, you have to adopt that all at once. You can't wait and say, okay, we're going to come back and revisit this in 6 months. We're going to revisit this 12, because the bond market has to know you have those rates already legally passed and adopted. It's just a mechanism of when they get billed. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
In other words, the rate increase gets divided into 3 pieces.
Right,
equal.
but
Well,
we,
that's 10 and 10.
when we had our study session, a few weeks ago, we should have brought it up then. I mean, it would have been a better idea, but again, the end result is still gonna be the same.
Well, it's,
you know.
as Eric has just said,
Right.
it all has to be there at the end of 18 months,
Right.
period.
Eric, if I may ask, so the 10%, 10%, 10% would have to go, it would be every 6 months, then we would be increasing our residents' bills every 6 months.
I wouldn't go longer than the 18-month period, and the reason being your largest bond payment comes due towards the end of 2022. So my advice would be that you have the full rates in effect within the 18-month period. And yes, all you're doing, you're still passing the rate increase tonight or whenever that would be if you do choose to. All it is the billing takes place 3 separate times, the billing increase. So yes, a resident, maybe the easiest is the gentleman that had the minimum bill, the $8. He would see his $8 go up, not all the way to the $10.60. He'd see it go from $8 to 9 something, then to probably 10, and then to $10.60. I'm doing that in my head. I don't know the exact numbers.
So I would need to check, I'm certain from a billing aspect, we would be able to do that, I would think.
Once you have the ordinance. So,
Once we have
Mr.
the
President, I would ask, Mr. Facenda, and this is something you had asked me about previously, is if we do stair step it, in light of the way the ordinances are drafted before you tonight, that's, well, I'm going to rely on Mr. Facenda, who drafted the ordinances, to kind of weigh in on doing that amendment on kind of the floor tonight may not be the way he suggests doing it.
Yeah, so if you were to, from a logistics standpoint and the adoption standpoint, if you were to delay the implementation of these rates for some period of time, I don't know if you'd say 6 months, but keep the ordinance as is, then I think you could do that on the floor. If you're going to come up with a different schedule that is not in your ordinance tonight, I think you have to draft a new ordinance and bring it before the council.
So then, let me ask you this. So if we do that, and we draft a new ordinance, where are we in the process? Do we have to start completely over with a new public hearing, with doing 30 days notices, and can you enlighten me there?
Yeah, so I think your public hearing's been held.
Okay.
As long as you do not modify the overall rates above what was advertised, then I think you're okay. But you will be delaying the adoption.
Right.
Right? So you'll be delaying the process at least, let's call it 30 days. But your public hearing wise, you've had it, you've presented the ordinance, the rates, and as long as you don't exceed those, there wouldn't have to be a new public process.
Okay.
I got a question. If we pass the ordinance as it is tonight, can we wait till, let's say, the November billing cycle to implement the new rates?
So yes, so you could delay. Part of this, I'm turning to Eric because of
getting off,
when
you know.
the dollars need to come in. When do they?
We're coming right now, if we pass it and implement it with this billing cycle, you're coming into your large use.
Summertime.
Right.
If we pass it as it is now, we won't have to redraw it, but we implement it and start charging the rate with the November billing, that right there is a 6-month deferral.
So the last line of both ordinances say the ordinance takes effect, full force and effect, from and after its passage and adoption by the town council, right? So that's what section 6 of the water ordinance and section 5 of the sewer ordinance says. So that's what Mr. Facenda was saying, is if you were going to just delay when this was going to take effect till November 1st, he would be comfortable with allowing, you to go ahead and just make that amendment on the floor tonight and pass it. If you're going to take Mr. Aurelio's suggestion and kind of stair-step this, for lack of a better way to describe it, then he's going to need to draft a new ordinance that would then come before you at your next either schedule meeting, or you could schedule a special meeting for the purpose of adopting that amended ordinance. So long as you don't go over the 30% that we're talking about.
So Mike's suggestion, Mike Schilling's suggestion would be, if you implemented the rate increase on the November 1st billing, it would be for usage of September 15th through October 15th, which is just at the end of the summer sprinkle rates.
Okay.
So the residents would still be able to water as usual without the increase, and then go into their winter months with the increase and would see less of an impact right off the bat.
Yeah, you wouldn't really see a bigger impact until
Sure. So
June of
Yeah.
2022.
I think that's not a bad idea. Kind of a net, it would be a similar result, because I know they're getting 30%, but then also that's in the season where water's not being used as much. So I think that would be a nice benefit as well.
And you're going right where I haven't crunched those numbers exactly, but you're going kind of probably the similar result,
Sure.
where
Right.
you miss out on that in Mr. Aurelio's suggestion, the 10% in your high usage month, which would be some good revenue coming in, but then you're not delaying the third phase, the extra 6 months, if you do what Mr. Schilling's proposing. So to the town's perspective, you probably end up at about a similar spot. Many people here tonight are hearing this discussion. You're going to have many people that probably just the first time they know of this is when their bill goes up. They're going to see that then, okay, why'd my bill change 3 times? So that also may be, from an administrative perspective, a little bit easier to get to the same result.
Plus, there's gonna be what? A 6-month delay in reality for the first installment. Therefore, you're gonna cut the next 2 installments down to month 6 later, and it's done.
I think what Mr. Schilling's suggesting is.
He wants one shot in
Yeah.
November.
Yeah.
One shot in November.
I don't have a
No
problem with
installments,
that.
but
Yeah,
just
neither do I.
delaying
I think that's a good
effectiveness.
suggestion.
I don't have a problem with that at all.
I like that suggestion.
And then you're
Yeah,
not
if we're
gonna-
getting it for one shot, that's fine.
Delay it until November billing. I do have a couple of questions. And I guess they would refer to some of the public comment was the bond issue done properly? I mean, Mr. Hero brought up some issues about the bond issue wasn't presented properly.
So we are addressing the bond issue, and then.
I'm sorry.
But
I will-
I'll go ahead and address that.
If you would.
So there was a public process. There were 2 meetings before the Water District Board, a declaratory and a confirming resolution, and a public hearing on April 20th before the Water District Board. The statute requires that you provide an estimate of cost. There was an estimate of cost, and there was much detail. But the bottom line on the statute is an estimate of cost, and there was an estimate of cost that was presented
Okay.
at the public hearing.
Thank you. Couple other comments were about the rate not paying for new construction, and I think if you heard some of the public comment we heard, we've got a lot of aged mains that need to be upgraded and things like that, that's what some of this bond is used for. For those that didn't hear any of the public hearings we had prior, when a new development comes in, the developers are required to put in all of the required water mains, sewers, and things like that that are needed for that development. That's part of the building process and the approval for development. So a lot of that does get paid by the developer. There was a comment about the town not doing their job as far as having the state pay for the Route 41, and I think Scott addressed that. Could you do that at this time? Introduce yourself if you would.
Good evening, Scott Cookta with Haas and Associates. It's sort of a complex real estate issue, but the bottom line is that in the state of Indiana, utilities have some rights to be in public right-of-way. However, that right is limited to the ability for the property owner, in this case, the state of Indiana, for US 41, to build their roads. So the state law basically allows the utilities to be there up until the point that it interferes with their road projects. In this case, as we know, they're widening the US 41 for most of through St. John, the southern half of St. John. We have a 12-inch water main on the east side of US 41. It's right on the very extent of the widened portion of the road and is thus a conflict for the state of Indiana's road widening project. Unfortunately, it's barely in conflict, but it is in conflict. This is an older water main. It's from the 1980s. Portions of it were due to be replaced. We're actually on a list that we had developed with Public Works over the years. This is one of many mains in town that were analyzed for replacement. And so it's just coincidental in a way that it also is now in conflict with the widening project. So fundamentally, how it comes down to is if the town could somehow prove that it had a previous real estate right to that land, then it could potentially be reimbursed by the state for that relocation cost. Absent that, the town is allowed to be in the NDOT right away. It just can't be where they're building a road, and thus the town has to pay for it. Just as NIPSCO has to pay to relocate their electric and gas, they're interfering, just as AT&T, Comcast have to relocate their lines as well. Unfortunately, the town is just one of the utilities when it comes to the state's perspective. And in this case, we have sewer and water. Well, in this particular case, we just have water, but other portions of the project also had sanitary sewer as well that had to be relocated. So that's the short end of it. Like I said, there are some opportunities in the state law for how to get reimbursed in very specific cases. And prior to releasing the job for construction, we will make sure that all those boxes were checked. But at this point, we have absolutely no indication that that the state owes the town money for relocating this main, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. Gentlemen, any other questions, comments? So, Mr. Westland, and so we're comfortable with making a different start date than the adoption of tonight. But as far as making any other divisions, that would push us back to another meeting. If we divide it up by 10%, 10%.
That's correct. So if you were looking at that alternative that had the ordinances effective, you would be moving to adopt, for instance, ordinance 1730 to be in full force and effect on November 1st, which is an amendment to section 6. And then you would do a similar thing with the sewer ordinance.
Okay.
And but if the majority wants to pursue the stair step, then we've kind of got to redraft.
Okay. So Beth, if you could, how much work is it for you to actually change the rate if we do this multiple times? Is that a lot of work, or?
It's a lot of work for Donna, my utility billing clerk, and there may be fees involved with Keystone because our utility billing program would have to go in and keep changing the rates
Okay.
every 6 months.
Okay.
I can't say for certain, but I'm I feel confident enough to say Keystone would most likely charge us some type of fee.
To keep making those changes. And are you comfortable with a November 1st date? Is that,
I like the November 1st date. It gives Donna plenty of time to do what she needs to do on the billing end. I think it's a great solution for our residents so that they're not hit, like Mike said, right out of the gates with using 20,000 gallons and at the same time as seeing an increase in
You know, you
rates.
see your big bulk of your increase would be, like I said, in June and July of 2022.
for summer
instead of
watering?
This year, so they have time to recoup from the pandemic and
Okay. So, Mike, you brought up the stair step, 10, 10, and 10. What are your thoughts?
That's a nice compromise to go to November 1st, and yeah, I think that on balance, I think it's a similar result. I'd be in favor of that.
Wayne,
Yeah.
you thinking that too?
I think that's good.
Ryan?
One shot, November 1st.
All right. Mr. Westland, any other final comments?
No.
Gentlemen? Eric? Phil?
I have a quick question.
I'm sorry, I can't take it, but I will be more than happy to, you can ask the question when we get to the utility, or the sewer sanitary side. You can bring that up again, because we have three separate public hearings.
I thought you did both of them already.
We did, I still have to open it up though when we get to the other ordinance, so, okay. With that, I will entertain a motion on ordinance 1730.
I'd like to make a motion for ordinance 1730, or ordinance 1730, amending ordinance 1645 and ordinance 1385, establishing rates and charges for the use of and services rendered by the waterworks system.
And what would be the date of effective, would you like to see there?
It would be effective in total November 1st.
Of 2021.
Correct.
Does that sound adequate, Mike? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. So is there support for that?
second that.
Any questions or comments? Then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That is approved, 5-0. Okay. We move on now to ordinance 1731, which is an ordinance amending ordinance 1634, establishing the schedule of rates and charges to be collected by the town of St. John from the owners of property served by the sewage works and other matters connected with that. Proof of publications have already been noticed and are in order. Opening remarks have been done, so I will open the floor to public comment at this time. So this is kind of rolling over the same thing again, but it just gives anyone else an opportunity, and if you have a question, you may raise that now.
Should I stand up?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Chuck Demkowitz, 9484 Belmont.
Yes.
Question. The developer goes ahead and he's paying for the sewer and the water in the development, correct?
Mm-hmm.
St. John has got to supply the developer, correct? With the water.
Yes.
Okay.
Through the mains that he put in, yes.
Right. So we are still bankrolling the developer's profit because we are paying to supply him with the water. Why not charge him more?
No, that's not exactly correct, because he also has to pay a fee to connect, a water meter fee.
Okay.
And there's also another, let's see here, what are the other fees that we have here? There are,
It's in the building permit that they're paying system development fees for $1,500 for water, $1,500 for sewer. So they're paying on that permit. And now with July 1st, I think the impact fees, that's going to be start out like $2,500 for every permit, and that's going to go for roads.
for roads.
Okay.
So basically,
And the tap fee is $1,500
per, well, it depends on the size. Most of it's 1 inch. It's $1,500 for a 1 inch tap.
But no, I'm not, I'm just talking about the mains that we have to supply the developer. We're gonna still have to pay for that.
Well, those, if they're already in, that's already paid for.
Already there, right.
But
you- if
it
they-
must be inadequate, because
Well-
you keep on saying that we have got to,
They have to be replaced because they get old. That is,
are they gonna replace them with the same size or larger?
that would be up to our engineers and our public works.
Because if they are the same size, then that would be wear and tear. But if we're putting in larger to supply more water to the developer, we're paying for it,
Okay.
which
your point.
really isn't fair.
In the cost of these production, we're putting these production wells in. That's generating the water that us as a utility is gonna sell to the customers.
Okay,
We're getting our money back when we sell the water from these wells to the customers. Either they're old customers or new customers that come online in these developments. The water main replacements, one of them on here, this is the one on 41, that's a 12-inch existing line. We're
Okay.
replacing it with a 12-inch line.
okay.
We have to move it out of the right-of-way so they can widen the street
Okay,
there.
yeah, I could see that.
And then when we get into these other stacks of water mains that they're gonna be replacing, these are gonna be replaced with a larger water main, just due to the fact for fire protection. When these lines were put in, most of these are 6-inch lines. Now, you're required now to put the smallest line you can put in, even with the town subdivision control ordinance, is an 8-inch water line. So as we replace these older 6-inch lines in these subdivisions, we have to adhere to that too, and we have to replace them with an 8-inch
Okay.
water line, and most of that is for fire flow.
Right, and that's a state requirement, I can see that. Thank you.
All right, you're
Yep.
welcome. Eric, did you have something to add? You're good? Okay. All right, anybody else from the floor to comment on water sewer?
One more before I leave.
Yes, sir.
You guys actually had a really good idea with stair stepping it, to do the cost. Instead of giving everybody at 30%, maybe increase the rates when you're doing like maintenance, because I work for a utility company, so I know that replacing water lines and stuff like that, that's the maintenance side of it. Then you got the new construction, which the developer puts all the water and sewer, and then they turn it over to the town when you have so much residents in there, right? Is that?
They turn it over right away to the town.
Oh, do they?
Once they put that water system in, it gets transferred over to the town. And then when, on top of that, after they put those water mains in there, when the house comes into the subdivision, they pay on top of that to tie into those water lines after they,
So you're paying like for a 1-inch tap, like $1,500?
yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just saying, well, if you need to do it, it would be better, like, let's say if you had a 6% and then a 7%, like every 3 or 4 years, and then you're not getting all smacked up with a 30% at one time. I understand it's been lacking for a while before you had an increase. What was it, 2004?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, it's pretty much of a,
16 years.
it's a hard bit to swallow when you want to do it 30%.
These last 7 water lines, there's 7 of them here that they have scheduled to be changed out. They're on Olcott in the smaller part of town. Now, you live on
Larimer.
Okay, that was put in the 50s, and then, they, off of the Hilltop, Larimer,
Yeah.
those lines were put in probably in the 50s or 60s. Now, they were replaced in the early 90s, and then where this gentleman lives on Belmont, that was in the 60s as well. They replaced your water line probably about 4 or 5 years ago down, Belmont. And now this area that's covered is the other parts that were put in after your guys' subdivisions were put in. Most of these lines are replacing what was put in many years ago.
Oh my God.
And your water quality probably went back up,
Actually, my house had a well and septic.
well, and septic at one.
At one time, I
At
think
one
in the
time.
70s or early 80s, they put the sewer in. I know the water's been in for a while because I had a water main break out in front of my house.
There was houses on Alcott, when I first moved in, that were all well and septic.
Yeah.
There was no sewer, there was no water.
Well, my house was completed in 69, so.
Yeah, you would have had maybe town water then because the water system was put in the 40s, but our sewer system wasn't put in until the early 80s.
Yeah.
Before
yeah.
that, everybody was on a septic.
Yeah, septic and well,
That's
yeah.
why there was a half-acre minimum on lot size. That was the minimum.
Yeah,
for-
because when I put my pool in, I hit the, they had the old tank, the collection tank there. And actually, the guy put some stone in there, which he was supposed to do anyway, which was good, so. All right, because you said the prices aren't, they're not going to affect until November?
They will go into effect in November
November
of
1st.
this year.
November 1st.
Okay, good, because I got to put water in my pool. All right. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else from the floor? All right, then I will close public comment to the floor. I would like to look at, and aside from this rate, that we're working on right now, I would like to look at maybe finding a way that we can do something for seniors, but not necessarily with a discount. But if we could maybe look at lowering the minimum monthly, if there's only 2 people that live in the house, maybe they're not using that much water.
Most of the time, I think what the minimum is, if someone is not living there for the winter months, you're gonna use your minimum amount of water, I think,
ya?
every. No?
You don't, Rick?
No, there's 2 of us in the house, except usually, like you said, July or August, when I'm watering my garden, watering my grass, we're using, and again, I don't know what that number is, that's why I asked you.
Right.
But it's $8.15 every month. That's why I was concerned that, I'm not using a lot of water like somebody that's got 6 kids, but yet,
Yeah, so I understand there's fixed cost of postage and things like that, but if we could find a way maybe to at least study that to see if maybe there's, how many people in town aren't using that minimum, and to see if we can maybe lower that number to.
I'm sure the clerk treasurer's office has that number, and it shouldn't be too difficult to obtain.
She has all kinds of things available.
I understand that.
Okay.
Thanks, Rick.
There's like 7,000 customers, Rick.
Glad to be of help.
Thanks.
60% for Rick.
All right, so I close the floor to public comment.
I think this gentleman raised his hand, did you?
I'm sorry.
No,
Oh.
Okay, any other comments from the board?
With the sewer rate starting November 2?
That's what we're working on right now. That's what we're working on that ordinance right now. Brian, anything? Mike?
No, sir.
No.
Mike Schilling, what are your thoughts on doing the same thing with the sewer rates? Make them all at one time?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. So you want to make that motion?
Yeah, we got the 1731.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 1731, and with it going in its full effect in November 1st. And that will set the rates for the sewage works.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Is there support for that?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Aurelio. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That is approved 5-0. I would like to make a modification to our agenda at this time, because the bond issue should be coming up here as part of a follow-up from water and sewer, and I think that's listed as 7B. So I would like to pull that up now so that way Mr. Eric and Mr. Facenda can all both get out of here after we get this business taken care of. So I would like to bring that up right now, which would be ordinance 1729, which is the ordinance authorizing the acquisition, construction of certain additions and improvements to the waterworks of Town of St. John, issuance of additional revenue bonds, and all matters related hereto. So we're doing this on second reading, so there's no public hearing on this, Mr. Westland?
No.
Okay.
Members of the council, Mr. President, we've already addressed many of the projects, and I was going to ask that that Jim Maurer come up and explain in a little bit more detail the projects that are incorporated into the financing. In broad categories, they are the SCADA system. They are the new well house for well number 8 and well number 9, and they are the water main relocations and replacements throughout the town. The aggregate principal amount of the bonds is not to exceed $8,750,000. Included in that would be the cost of the projects, all the costs of issuing the bonds, and there would be a debt service reserve because these are revenue bonds. So in order to give protection for the bondholders, we would be financing a debt service reserve, which Eric could address if there are questions on that. The bonds would be on parity with the existing waterworks bonds that are from 2017, which themselves were refinancing bonds of a prior bond issue and are outstanding. Those bonds are outstanding in the amount of $1,895,000. These bonds would be issued in such a way that the impact of the debt service on these bonds would not take full impact until such time as the debt service on the other bonds is winding down, such that we refer to those as wraparound financings. So this one is going to wrap around the existing 2017 bond issue. One last thing, the bonds, the final maturity of those of the bonds that are proposed would be no longer than August 1st of 2040. And I actually think that the number run that Eric has done has our final maturity sometime in 2039. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I would like to have Mr. Maurer just explain in a little bit more detail some of the projects.
Okay, sir.
Okay, the projects consist of 3 categories. Category A is water supply, and it concerns new well number 8 and future well number 9. Total project cost estimate, $2,840,000. These would supply water to the Gates Water Treatment Plant, and some of the costs involved will be some modifications to the water plant. Category B are proposed new water mains to improve the distribution of water throughout the town. 2 projects are involved. A 12-inch water main on the west side of US 41 from the well house number 4 area to the south, distance of 1,400 feet. The estimated cost, $210,000. This will help to distribute water from the Monix Water Treatment Plant to the southwest, which would help with the overall distribution of water in your system. Also, 2,000 feet of 12-inch water main on the south side of 101st Avenue from Park Place to Klein Avenue, $215,000 cost estimate. This would help the Gates Water Plant to be better connected to the rest of the town. Category C are the water main replacements due to failing water mains. And these total, there's 7 of them. I should first say that of the 2 proposed water mains to improve distribution, these 2 were selected from a list of 6 by town officials. Back to the proposed new water mains to replace existing problem mains. There are 7 that were selected from a list of 9 by the town officials. These 7 total $3,367,000 estimated project cost. And 3 of them are on Alcott Avenue. 1 is on West 85th Avenue. One is the US 41 water main relocation for the NDOT widening project. And one is a water main retirement at Prairie West Park. And one is, it was from West 96th Court and North Coat Avenue to 97th Court and North Coat Avenue. So I could read each of those individual costs, but the total is $3,367,000. I'd like to add something in response to some of the public questions, if that's all right.
Sure.
We are preparing a water system capacity study for the town. Included in that study is the location of future water supply wells. That'll be done by Peerless Midwest. And this will determine whether or not well supply can meet the needs of the town. And we're looking at the study going to full development of the town, including expansion of the town boundaries. We don't know yet where we stand with regard to the wells being able to supply the whole town. But regarding Lake Michigan water supply, the town has a contract with the town of Sherrville that will yield a maximum of about 1.4 million gallons a day of water from Sherrville. And that's Lake Michigan water. A couple of years ago, the town asked if that could be increased, and Sherrville said not without they incurring major expense. There's also Lake Michigan water available to the east of town, directly from Indiana American or Aqua, I'm not sure what their new name is. But the town does now and can receive further Lake Michigan water if needed, because your wastewater goes to Sherrville's treatment plant, and the effluent from that drains back into Lake Michigan. So Lake Michigan water is always a potential future source of water. But it comes at a much greater expense than well water. And so if you would go, if you have to go in the future with more Lake Michigan water, it's going to force a further increase in water rates because it's more expensive. I don't know, I can't tell you how much more expensive, but I know that it is considerably more expensive. So I just wanted to share that information.
Would it be possible to have that as part of the long-term study?
Yes.
Of what it would cost to actually bring that option forward?
That's the intent of the study,
Okay.
to determine, if there is, if wells don't appear to be able to meet the future needs, the consideration would be given to additional Lake Michigan supply.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any questions with regard to the bond issue?
Anything from the board?
No.
No? Doesn't appear so.
Thank you.
All right. Then I will
Thanks, Jim.
entertain a motion on ordinance 1729 to adopt on second reading.
So moved?
Thank you, Mr. Aurelio. Is there support for that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Brian. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That is approved 5-0. So that is our bond issue. Okay. So now we go back to item 7A. Consider a special exception, which is a request for the 10135 Earl Drive in the 41 Overlay District. This is for the from the Board of Zoning Appeals. Came back from their hearings that Mr. Kuiper addressed us at the beginning, to operate a retail tobacco store. And this comes as a unfavorable, I'm sorry, where's my notes? It comes with an unfavorable recommendation from the Board of Zoning Appeals.
I'll make a motion to approve the special exemption.
Okay. So motion by Mr. Schilling to approve the special exemption request for 10135 Earl Drive. Is there support for that? And that will die for lack of support unless I hear another support. Okay, so there's no support for that motion. Do I hear another motion?
I'd like to make a motion to deny based on the BZA's recommendation
Thank you.
for 10135 Earl Drive in the US 41 Overlay District.
Thank you, Mr. Blazak. Is there support for that?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Aurelio. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
That is approved
The only
for.
reason I had a consideration for it was the fact that they came, they were given somewhat of an approval to go, and they spent money on their project. And I hate to see any business come into town, spend money on something, and then ultimately be denied.
Well, I agree with your.
Agree with that.
I agree with that totally. I just don't want to make exceptions for our overlay district because we really need to protect that to make sure it gets developed, I think, as it's designed, so. But I understand. Thank you, Mike.
Well, this is was an existing building.
We will go on to, let's see, 7B we did, so we're on 7C. Ordinance 1733, which is an ordinance amending our salary ordinance of 1720. And what we have is an ordinance spelling out the building inspector positions 1 and 2, and also the farmer's market, part-time seasonal, to come from the farmer's market fund as opposed to the general fund, which is where it was earmarked once before.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Again, on this ordinance here, I'd like to defer this one. There was a couple other changes that the fire department would like to make to the salary ordinance, and I'd like to defer this to the next meeting so we can look at those changes as well and get it all done in one ordinance.
Okay. There's a motion to defer. Is there support for that?
Second.
Okay. Comments or questions? Mr. Clerk Treasurer, any, we're okay?
Yep.
Okay. Then, so the motion is to defer by Mr. Schilling, support by Mr. Blazak. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That is deferred. All right, item D, ordinance 1734, which is an ordinance amending the town zoning ordinance 1483. 1483, 1734, correct? Yes. So basically what we've done here is this comes from building and planning. They would like to restructure their, for the Board of Zoning Appeals, they would like to restructure so that the requirement for publishing is 1 legal notice and 1 newspaper, as opposed to 2 notices and 2 newspapers. Newspaper circulation is not as what it used to be. And also require that to be at least 10 days before the date fixed for public hearing. And also 10 days notice prior to appointed time by making sure all the property owners within 300 feet of the lot, parcel, or building in question is done. That's kind of summarizes our changes there. Questions or comments?
So they want to go from advertising it in 2 papers to just 1?
It was 2 papers twice.
2 papers twice?
We want to go to 1 paper once.
I would go to 2 papers once because not everybody gets the
I
same
think
newspaper.
I think the 2 papers are tied together to a certain degree.
We have the Post Tribune and the
And the Tribune,
and the
Chicago
and the
Tribune.
Times. That's 2 different. I don't have a problem with it once, but I would still like it to be in 2 papers. You know, not everybody gets the. You know, if it's in 1 paper and not the other, and you know, someone gets the Post Tribune.
I don't know that I have anybody that sat in on that BZA meeting or that building and planning meeting. Mr. Westland, any comments or enlighten us as far as the advertising part goes?
I don't have the statute in front of me. My recollection is that it only requires 1, so that the amendment is now bringing your ordinance into compliance with and consistent with state law.
State law, okay.
Because it's also part of your zoning ordinance, if you don't adopt it, that triggers going back to the plan commission for their consideration. So, you know, if you want to defer it to take a look at it, that's fine, but, you know, I hear what Mr. Schilling is saying, but my recollection of 5312 is that the ordinance that's being proposed mirrors what's required there.
Okay. So I'm back to you, Mike. What are your thoughts?
Well, if it's something that we have to do with PN
Compliance?
compliance, then it's a different issue. But
Well, you can always make, you know, your publication more stringent, which is what you
I
had.
would still like to see it, even if it's just once, still be in 2 papers, because not every resident reads the same newspaper, you know. That just opens up something to be missed.
Right.
So then let's maybe defer this and get some clarification on the advertising part of it from the board.
Papers 1 time.
That's what he said.
Yeah, that's good.
All right,
Is that
well,
what
I'll
you
make a
want to
motion
do?
to
I
defer.
mean, what are your thoughts?
2 papers at 1 time would be sufficient, I think. It does what you're asking, right, Mike?
Yeah, just as long as it's in 2 papers, that's
Right.
the only thing I'm.
Yeah, right now it's in 2 papers twice.
Right.
I don't mind that it
think it's
goes
not
from twice
sensible
to
do it that
once,
way,
but
sure.
at least there's still.
We don't want a
Yeah,
resident to miss it, right? You want to well publicize. I agree with that.
So if we modify this, then it has to go back to building and planning for,
With the plan commission, and again, I don't have the statute right in front of me, but when this is a modification of the text of your zoning ordinance.
right?
Right, so, and then that always starts in the plan commission and then comes to you. And you can adopt it or reject it, but if you start to modify the text of a zoning
It's gotta go
ordinance
back
that's
to
been
them.
recommended to you by the plan commission, my recollection is, and I can't give you the site like I could on the last one, but that it has to go back there for their input on whether or not they accept your modification. Whether they do or not, you're the ultimate decision maker, but they have to have a chance to kind of weigh in on your modification.
Right, okay.
And
So can we send it back to them with the modification as 2 papers 1 time?
yes,
And that's what I'd like to do.
Okay, all right, as long as we know what we're supposed to do it in the right order, okay. So that we can just
That would be
amend
a
this and send it back to, refer it back to the plan commission.
correct. And then
Okay.
they would consider it at their next meeting as modified. They will send it back to you with what their thoughts are, yes or no, and then you can at that point do whatever within your purview you want to do.
Okay.
It's completely discretionary at that point, but because it's a zoning ordinance text change, it has that additional step.
Okay. You guys comfortable with what we're going to be voting on?
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. All right, so what is your motion, Mike?
I'll make a motion to send it back to the Plan Commission to review it, to put in the text of 2 papers, 1 notice.
Okay. Is there support for that?
I'll second it.
Are we okay with the way the motion's worded?
We're okay with the motion.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That is approved and will be sent back to Building and Planning, or to Plan Commission. Okay. Ordinance 1735, which is an ordinance establishing the ARP Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, Fund number 176. Beth?
So this ordinance relates to the American Rescue Plan Act and the money received from the local fiscal recovery fund. Basically, the ordinance outlines the following. All monies received must be receipted into the separate ARP grant fund. We will title ours ARP Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, and then we're going to assign it number 176. Before money can be dispersed, the fiscal body must appropriate this fund. To ensure accountability and transparency of this fund, all disbursements must be made directly from this fund. It cannot be transferred to a different fund. And, of course, detailed accounting of the fund is required along with internal controls.
Okay. My question is there urgency on this, that we need to adopt it tonight, or can we do it on first reading and come back next month for the second reading?
I mean, I don't know when we're going to see our deposit, but we need to have a place to deposit it to. And that's essentially what you're doing, is you're creating a fund for when we receive our disbursement, we can put it somewhere. Otherwise, it's going to... Eric, do you know when we would anticipate seeing this money? It's 3.9 million.
Federal government had 60 days from President Biden signed it in, which I think was March 11th to distribute. Yours will come through the state of Indiana, then it'll probably take a few weeks for them to distribute it, but I'd say you're going to be seeing it here in the next few weeks. You'll be seeing approximately 50% of it in the initial distribution, then the other will come about 12 months later.
Right.
So
Okay.
it may be before your next meeting that you
Checked
get it.
today, and we've not received anything. I just wanted to make sure.
So we should adopt this tonight.
I would.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty standard.
Questions or comments from the board?
All you're doing is adding a name and a description and an account fund.
Keeping
for
the
right
funds
now.
separate
Right.
from any others.
Exactly. It's to break it out.
Yes.
Okay, so then we will look for a motion to entertain ordinance 1735 on first reading only.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Lysak. Thank you, Mr. Aurelio. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That is approved 5-0. And then I would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 1735 on second reading.
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Support for that?
Second.
Thank you, Wayne. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That is adopted and approved 5-0. Okay. Resolution 2021-04-28, which is a resolution authorizing the investment of public funds. Beth?
So I'm going to kind of discuss items F, G, and H all in one.
Okay.
So as most of you are aware, we've talked about investments of our public funds, and it's been a goal of ours for some time now, and so my office is ready to get this process started. I believe that you all should have been provided a 29-page wealth management brochure from Baker Tilly. It outlines their services related to investments on behalf of the town. You should have received an agreement for investment advisory services with Baker Tilly. And tonight you're being asked to authorize me to enter into same. This agreement will allow Baker Tilly to analyze and suggest suitable investments, competitively bid investments, and assist in ongoing analysis of our cash flow needed, as well as the reinvestment of available funds. Next, you also have an agreement with Lake City Bank and are being asked this evening to authorize me to enter into same. So So this depository agreement is so that we can set up a trust account on behalf of the town of St. John. This is where we're going to hold, settle, and track all investments. So I did talk to Baker Tilly about, his name is Jim, that's the investment, I don't know what his title is, management rep. And I asked why he suggests this particular bank, and he basically mentioned that that they have outstanding customer service. They've been using them for the last 7 to 8 years. They're a leader in the field, and they carry the lowest fees to sort of just, you know, hold our account. Lastly, you received a resolution authorizing the investment of public funds, and this resolution allows the town to invest in depositories designated by the State Board of Finance. It means that St. John can consider bids from banks, both local and not local. The town can choose the depository offering the best rates for return on our investments.
What's the time frame on that, Beth? Do you know?
So once we enter into the agreements, Eric, what do you think the turnaround? We haven't even, to be honest with you, we kind of wanted to start with having us enter into an agreement. We'll take a look. It was not too long.
Yeah, I would say within 60 days, the first step would be getting the trust set up with Lake City, and then also, Mr. Blazak, taking a look at all of the funds of the town, because we would only be investing what we call core balances that really you're not planning to use in the next.
Like bond money and such
Right.
that's sitting there.
Or reserves. We mentioned earlier in the sewer bond, you have a
400
reserve.
grand,
That money has to sit there for 20 years while the bonds are outstanding. So you can invest that and earn additional earnings. And just to be clear, you probably already know this, when we talk investments, it's not like we're putting the money in the stock market.
No.
There's only, treasury bills, CDs, Hoosier Fund, things like that. They're allowable investments, very safe investments.
Secured, I was going to
Secured.
say, secured
Correct.
investments.
Thank you, sir. Anything else? Beth?
No.
Okay. All right, so Resolution 2021-04-28. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Make a second?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Aurelio. And we probably should adopt this tonight as well? Okay.
Well, it's a resolution.
Yeah, so
Oh, it's a resolution,
only
I'm
needs
sorry.
one reading.
I was confused, it says first reading, so, okay. All right, so motion to adopt and a support. Is there, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. That is approved 5-0. And then we'll go to item G, which is the professional services agreement with Baker Tilly for investment advisory services. Questions or comments?
Who's gonna sign this, the clerk treasurer?
Baker,
I don't,
yes.
it would probably be best.
Yeah, might as
I'll
well.
make a motion to approve the, service agreement with Baker Tilly and,
Authorize.
authorize the clerk treasurer to execute, sign.
Thank you, Mr. Schilling. Is there support for that?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Blazak. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. That is approved 5-0. And then we have the depository agreement with Lake City Bank. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion to approve the depository agreement and authorize the clerk treasurer to sign. Thank you, Mr. Aurelio. Is there support for that?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Pondinas. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That is approved 5-0. Number 8, reports and correspondence. Town council. Mr. Blazak, anything?
I am pleased to announce to the room and to the public that we expect the paving contract for our road repaving for this season to start the first week in May. And it's anticipated after our meeting the other day that it'll wrap up the last week in July. So they'll start off with the ADA concrete removal and getting set up to put in the ADA pads. That'll take 1 to 2 weeks to pull the concrete and get it ready, put in the ADA pads, and then the 2 weeks after, once they start the ADA pads, 2 weeks after that, they'll start repaving, and they'll repave right on through July, and they should be able to wrap up by the last week. So that's the plan. Throw a rain day or two in there. All I can do is ask the residents, you'll be getting notices from the contractor, from the paving operation, which is Reith Riley this year. They will put notices out for you so that when your neighborhood, if it's on the list, and the list was put out earlier, if you're on the list, they'll send you a notice the week before it's gonna start so that you're aware, parking on the street, so on and so forth. You'll be able to park in your drive or wherever, make special arrangements. That's all I got, Jerry.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rillio.
Our Economic Development Committee, today we awarded a business, we have a monthly award for businesses in St. John. Welch's won that today. Their whole family was in. It was great to see them. They're a great business inside St. John. We were happy to see that. Also, the committee was hard at work on a facade improvement program, and that is moving forward. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Wayne.
Well, I'd like to thank Eric, still here, all the work that he's done, and Phil Pasenda on that bond issue. I know Phil's gone. And our engineers, Scott and Jim, all the work that they put in. We've had numerous meetings. They looked at the water mains along with Bob Valois and Bob Davis. A lot of work went into that. It's been over a year and a half. SCADA systems coming, that's great. Great job, everybody. And Eric, you did a great job. Thank you.
All right.
And everybody should recognize the fact that Wayne's more or less spearheaded this whole operation. He's done a bang-up job.
Bang up job. Good job. Mr. Schilling.
Brian talked about the repaving project, the one that's currently going on Joliet Street. That should be wrapped up with the first phase here in the next
2 weeks.
couple weeks, and then they're gonna start that intersection work to get the road finally connected to 41, with the anticipation of that being done sometime in July, August.
Okay. And we're still on track for that, Scott? Everything's on?
Yes, the final lift for the surcharge went in place last week, a week ago today. That's supposed to sit there for about 4 weeks. Hopefully all the instrumentation continues to come in positive on that, and if that settles according to how the engineers predict it will, we should be in good shape to pull it off and begin the final road construction that's been long anticipated. The final surface should go down on Joliet on Friday. Rained out tomorrow again, but that should be open up on Friday, so I know that's been an inconvenience to a lot of the citizens in the area, and we appreciate everyone's patience driving around there. The third phase of Joliet between the CSX tracks, which is the eastern tracks, and the Parish Roundabout will be part of the CCMG paving program that Brian mentioned getting going as well. So within the next couple of months, all of Joliet from US 41 to Parish should be repaved, which would be a welcome improvement.
Traffic signal?
Waited for the residents of the east side there.
Absolutely.
They're tired of tearing up their cars.
Yep. So after the surface is down Friday for the current paving on Joliet, it'll switch to Thielen and do Thielen from Joliet to Hart Street next week. So.
And time frame on the traffic signal on 41? What?
So time frame, as we discussed in recent meetings, once the surcharge program is complete, they'll construct the road joining the first phase of West 96 to Joliet. And then they will, once that road is in place, they can activate the signal and then construct the barrier to prevent eastward turns from southbound US 41 traffic onto Joliet, divert that traffic to the new extension. So July is still the anticipated schedule.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Yeah, one thing with the repaving on Thielen Street, that's one of the oldest streets in town. That was.
It looks like it.
That was when St.
It's-
John only had 4 streets in town: Hack, Thielen, Joliet.
It's had covered wagons on it, hasn't it?
More than likely.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Mike?
Oh, good.
I've got notification from the St. John Volunteer Fire Department. It's that time of year when they're looking for their support for us to contribute to the maintenance of their training site located at 9740 Industrial Drive. This is part of our contractual agreement with the town and the volunteer division of the St. John Fire Department. And they are, our donation is $15,000. So I'm looking for a motion to pay that annual contribution.
I'll make a motion to pay or give the St. John Volunteer Fire Department $15,000 for their annual donation to the training site.
Thank you, Mr. Schilling. Is there support for that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Blazak. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
say nay. That is approved 5-0. Thank you.
One thing with the fire training site there, we use it for our own firemen, but firemen throughout the Lake County and really the first district of Indiana training use that facility to train young firemen from all across our county and the 5 district counties.
Okay.
Along that. They're there 2 days a week.
All right. I also have a letter from the convention, Lake County Convention and Visitors Bureau, that we need to update our appointment to the Convention Visitors Bureau. I would like to thank Mr. Ed Walsh for his service there. And we are looking for his, appoint his replacement of Mr. Peter Kladeris, who's the Vice President of Theo's Dining. So do I have a motion to approve Peter Kladeris to be appointed to the Lake County Convention and Visitors Bureau?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Schilling, Mr. Pondinas, Mr. Blazak. Thank you all. In favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That is approved 5-0. That is all I have. Beth?
No, nothing.
Nothing? Mr. Westland?
I don't have anything.
Really?
Really?
Okay. Then we will go to the RRTP's request to purchase. Beth?
Yes, I received 17 requests to purchase. One from Brown Equipment Company, one from Fire Service, Inc., one from Corterra, Inc., 2 from Co-Alliance, 3 from Ferguson, 1 from Rico, 1 from Schillings, 1 from ATN Technology, 1 from Dell, 1 from Peerless Midwest, 1 from Corson Fire, 1 from Boonder Electric, 1 from M&K Truck Center of Gary, and 1 from Lindco. All 17 RTPs total $403,315.26. You should have all received copies of these last week.
Okay. Questions or comments on any of the RTPs?
Is there any way to cut down these volumes, Beth, going forward?
Tell people to stop buying stuff.
No. I don't mean that. I mean the delay with them. They come so late. Is that the reason why we've got $400,000 worth of requests to purchase?
I think that you've got a large
One
dump
of them
truck.
is a large item
Yeah.
ticket.
Okay.
And
'Cause I
then
was
you
gonna
have,
say that's some huge money that's last minute.
Yeah, but they're spread amongst several different funds. And
Right.
I know Bob's also buying a leaf vac, which is a big expense. That's coming from the solid waste fund. We have to spend that.
It's not that we don't have to spend the money. It's just that,
I think you're gonna see these increase as we
Really?
get into better weather.
Oh, okay.
Expenses start to,
Yeah, they got money budgeted, they got money to spend, and they need to do it to keep business going, so. Do I have a motion? I'm sorry, I forgot where I was. I think I need a motion to pay these RTPs.
I'll make a motion to pay that RTPs.
Thank you, Wayne. Is there support for that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Schilling. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That is approved 5-0. We'll go on to item 10, which is payment of the bills for the corporation. You have the docket in front of you for $2,104,418.50. Do I have a motion?
So moved to pay the bills in the amount of $2,104,418.50.
Thank you, Mr. Blazek. Is there
Second.
support? Thank you, Mr. Aurelio. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. That is approved 5-0. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.